In today's global economy, quality matters. Benjamin Franklin once quipped, "The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten." Quality Matters is here to talk about all things quality. So whether you're looking to improve your business, getting ready for an audit, or dealing with failed inspections, tune in, check us out, then get back to doing work that matters.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Quality Matters podcast, brought to you by Texas Quality Assurance, where quality management gets simplified. I'm Kyle Chambers, and today we're just kind of diving into a bit of a personal story and talks about quality with Roz Lowe. We've tried getting her on the podcast before. Different problems occurred, couldn't work out, but we're thrilled to have her here today. She's really got a great background and really a lot of great real world experience when it comes to working in the manufacturing, U.S. manufacturing, a lot of the fun quirks that come with it and how to ensure good quality in the workplace and really kind of what that means. So, Roz, welcome to the podcast at last.
Hey, nice to see you again.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for having me on your quality show. I love quality people. So
no, thank you. So you've just recently landed with a new company. Kind of tell us about where you're at and a little bit of background of how you got here, because you're kind of got a fun background.
Well, yeah, thanks. I'm with a company, Delta High Tech. It's a very interesting company, in fact. And my background is I grew up in this industry. You might say that I'm the coal miner's daughter, but the centerless grinder's daughter, right?
Right.
And I actually used to sing that song to my dad when I was a kid, and I changed the words around a little bit. Instead of coal miner's daughter, I was proud to be a centerless grinder's daughter. We had a little shop, and so I grew up in it, and I was mechanically inclined daughter more than I was the daughter who was going to be stuck in the office. So, I helped my dad out with grinding and thread rolling and, making components and on the machines. And I ended up in quality as I got a little older. And eventually I'm truly better at relationship building because I'm genuine. So
and you don't think about that when you think about this world. It seems very cut and dry rules and procedures and requirements, and it's so much about dealing with people.
It is. Yeah, it really is. And I think that people miss I think there was a time when we, did a lot of handshaking, and then there was a time when we did a lot of emailing.
Yeah.
And I think the time of picking up the telephone, is like the new thing.
Yeah.
So if you want to grow your business, kind of the way to do it is a little bit of technology, of course. And picking up the phone and just a good old fashioned, hey, how you doing? This is what we do. So I'm business development director at the company I'm currently at.
Yep.
I have worked in some fascinating industries, though. I've worked with beryllium. Worked at a shop where they just did all this beryllium, and I don't mean beryllium copper. I mean the real deal,
right?
The kind that'll make you get cancer and sick. So you better be careful around it. Yeah, actually, the beryllium copper is even that way. People don't realize it, But with what we know now, you just really have to take a lot of precautions. But as it relates to your show, I actually ended up making an executive decision personally that I wanted to move on and work with a company that, and I'm not going to make this sales pitchy, I promise.
Yeah.
But I went about in my career and I decided I'm going to interview the shop. Yeah, I know they're going to interview me, and then at the end of the interview how they always go, "Do you have any questions for me?" And of course,
everyone's always no, not really.
Right. And you don't know what to ask, but you got to come up with something clever, but you're kind of thinking to yourself, throughout this whole interview, I've kind of asked you everything I need to know. I mean, that's where I'm always out. So this time around, I said, you know what, I'm going to have a bunch of questions for them. And so I started asking, what's your OTD all about? And I wanted to see the data. And I really changed it up. I wanted to know. How do you know that? Don't just tell me 98% or 99%. I want to know why.
How are you calculating it? There's that's awesome. I like it.
If you don't do that, you're going to burn your reputation in this industry. and it's a small industry, right?
I mean,
So
that's something that just continually blows me away is everyone knows everyone in some way. We're all weirdly connected. It's not that dispersed as you would think.
It isn't at all. I mean, oh God, right? And if you're that person burning bridges or making bad parts and you end up at another shop and some buyer shows up from, Raytheon and they remember you and trust and believe if you mess up their parts, they remember you. And they're not going to want to play with you anymore. And that's just how it works. So, you got to be careful. But, interestingly, at this company here, and I do have the answer to fixing poor quality, by the way. And I learned it at this company I'm at. And I'm not going to this is not a sales pitch. We're just going to talk shop here.
No, we were talking about this a little bit last week. It is really fascinating what they've done there.
I know the solution, and we've all been wondering, right? We're all like, how do we fix poor quality? How do we get parts out the door on time? Yada, yada, right? Well, there are a lot of things you have to do, but one of them right here is a main solution. It's quite an investment. But you know what? This is your bread and butter. This is how you make that bread and butter, how you pay your bills. So invest in your business. And this is how you do it. And it's nice to the machinists too. You cross-train those machinists on how to use the CMM.
Yeah.
Stick a CMM on your shop floor in the machining cells and train them how to use it. And during production, that 5-minute cycle time, the guy's got a part on the machine, say 5-minute cycle time or whatever it is, right? 3 minutes. You got that CMM programmed, and throughout the entire order, they're checking parts.
Yeah.
That fixes your quality issues, right? Because if something goes wrong or something changes, because it will, especially in production.
Yeah.
But even in small stuff, like a 25-piece order,
especially with machinists, I mean, and I need to be careful how I say this because I might get some folks upset with me, but there's a lot of time when you're operating, the CNCs or whatever it is that you're really just watching the machine run. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still lots to watch and to check for and be concerned about. All sorts of stuff can happen, but it does give you a little extra opportunity. Let me just check the one we just finished just to make sure it's all going good.
Yeah, or they're on their Facebook on that phone.
Well, you said that one, not me.
Come on now, I've seen that on the shop floor.
I was the IT guy at a previous company, and I nearly got run out of the parking lot the day that I disabled YouTube and Facebook. Oh my gosh, there was a mob ready to get me nearly.
That was great. You needed to do that. Not bad idea to do. I mean, honestly, I mean, there's nothing wrong with checking parts with calipers and, height gauges and your micrometers and all the God blessed tools we have in this industry to check things. And for goodness sakes, we got a rocket to the moon without CMMs being around. Yeah. Right. So, we use competitors, but the CMM is definitely, the way to go with checking parts, especially if you're playing with complex components, which is typically the world I find myself in, in the industry, right? And when you're working with complex components, there are certain dimensions that you're not going to be able to check using just traditional inspection tooling. Yep. Right. Yep. But the CMM is just perfect, and it's faster. It's fast, and consequently, everybody always talks about where the bottlenecks are in our industry, right? And it's always final. That's where it's at. It's always final inspection. Yep. And when you're checking these parts that way on the shop floor, when you don't have a bottleneck in final. No. And when you're going through final, you don't have a bottleneck because parts weren't good and we got to figure out why. And, think about all the time you save.
Oh, I know.
Good parts the first time out.
Well, this is a problem I ran into in a previous company. We had a similar type solution. This shop was largely a weld shop. We had some machines, we had some EDM, some large VTLs, but 90% of the production was welding. And we had a similar type issue is our inspection bay was our bottleneck, and it was backed up. We're going through God only knows how much red dye. Just the cost of the filtration system was a mess. And our solution actually wound up being kind of a two-part solution. Is we made all of our welders get certified as AS&T level 1 for liquid penetrant inspection and visual inspection.
Nice.
And if you couldn't get certified as AS&T level 1, you didn't get to weld for us. It was just that simple. Yeah. And it was the same type thing. By the time stuff got to final inspection, we needed smaller batch sizes, unless the customer had 100% inspection criteria, which sometimes they did. But when they didn't have it, we could get away. I say get away, bad way to put it, but with smaller batch sizes on the inspection. And there was less rework. There was next to no rework. The rework was caught at the table. I imagine you'll see the same thing here. The rework is probably caught there at the machine. And dadgum if that machinist wants to be issuing rework on himself.
No, he doesn't. And he's also not going to be able to, also, come on, we know this happens a little bit where they'll hustle the person that's the floor inspection lady or the guy or whatever. They'll be like, yeah, it's good, just sign off on it. Yeah. My son was working at a company and they had this quality lady there. And, my son's an inspector. He grew up in the business, though. He grew up in a precision centerless grinding
really
shop.
Cool. Really cool.
-210s all day long.
Yeah.
And so anyways, he's in the inspection department, got hired as an inspector. He's like 20 years old or something.
Yeah.
And he come home to me, and I was friends with the people that own the shop. And my son came home to me. He's like, Mom, I got to tell you something. That lady doesn't know how to read mic. And I'm like, you need to raise your hand on that. And he's like, no, he's not a tattletale, so he's not going to say nothing. I said, well, then you need to teach her how to do it. But what we found out was eventually the guys on the floor this was an Acme Gridley shop. So it was open tolerance. So anyways, the guys were coming in and telling her, yep, this is what I got. Sign off on this. And the owners had no idea. And they and they kept wondering, why are we having so many problems with these long runs, I mean, they gotten to the point where they were swapping the Gridleys out for different machines because they were thinking, well, maybe the Gridleys are old and tired and we need to upgrade. And they needed to upgrade anyways, but it wasn't because of those Gridleys. Yeah. It was because, so, eventually, it came to light that this young lady, either she'd had the job for 8 years, and she was also their AS9100 lady, which, by the way, means sometimes the two aren't the same.
No,
right?
No, QA, QC, it's not the same. It is not. Totally different. We had a recent episode talking about metrology and same type thing. That they're parallel, but they are not the same.
Yes, it's like driving a stick shift in an automatic.
Yeah. It's
a car. It's got 4 wheels and an engine, but if you can't drive a stick, don't drive mine.
Yep.
Don't learn in my car.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
But I love, if anyone's listening to the podcast, they've heard me talk about dimming 1,000 times. But one of his 14 points of management, he talks about, decreasing the necessity of inspection. And he doesn't mean the in-process checking your own work inspection. He means the dedicated stage and step in the job traveler. We're sending it to the inspection department to check to make sure I did my work right. And the less you can rely on that inspection to ensure quality, the better it's all going to go. And it does a wonderful thing. I'm sure y'all have seen this, is it truly enables that person to take pride in his work. Now he's not just waiting to see what the inspection guy kicks back, but he truly takes pride in his own work. And we seem to have lost that in so many aspects of our society.
Well, I think that you've got to give machinists some respect. Honestly, I don't think machinists get quite the respect they're owed.
Nope.
And the attaboys that they're deserving of. You got salespeople in the front that are just getting that, attagirl or that attaboy. And I get them, so I know. Yeah. But really, without those machinists, nothing's happening. And without those machinists, guess what, inspectors? You guys aren't doing anything either.
Yeah.
So... And I feel like machinists are underpaid a little bit. I've been noticing that a little bit. I'm looking around. I'm thinking, man, the machinists, they're not getting paid what they should. I'd like to see them, get more these guys here where I'm at, they're cross-trained on CMMs. That's
something.
That's a talent, really and they get paid for it too.
Yeah.
They get paid better. So when you're working at a company that's, willing to invest in you in that way, and train you better. It's a pretty good day on Friday.
No, I totally agree. My oldest boy, he's just starting high school.
Okay.
So he actually started football practice.
Oh, nice. I love it. What's he play? What's his position?
He's never played. He played one season in Pee Wee, so he's just jumping in, seeing, if he can do it and if he can hang. So we'll see how.
Well, don't let him be a safety or a linebacker. I made that mistake.
But he talks about what he wants to do after high school and whatnot. And I've told him, like, look, buddy, whether you go to college or not, you go to college, you trade, whatever you do, it's like you dadgum better learn some trades along the way. 100%. And that's one thing I've told him. It's like, look, man, you need to learn how to weld. You need to learn, all these different type things. Learn enough skills and trades that whatever you wind up doing, you have some firm foundation to stand on. And it's just a shame that there's not been the emphasis on this for so long. And it's really affected our modern workplace and the way we perceive quality. We look at quality as what happens on the spreadsheet at the end. We're so reliant on this final inspection, which is why I'm so excited to talk to you about this stuff today, because it's not the final inspection that determines quality. Yeah. If anything's caught at final inspection, we screwed up 10 times along the way.
Yeah, right. Tell me about it. And remaking orders and reordering material and how long that takes, especially nowadays with the supply chain issues we're seeing on material. There's a lot we need to get back to the basics on. But this trade school stuff is, teaching these young people a trade. I'm 100% all about that. I know too many kids that went to college, and don't get mad at me, everybody, with your degree.
Oh, we talk bad about college on here plenty, so.
Okay, then I won't have any haters. But I mean, I got the other day I was at a company. I won't name the company. I won't name the company who sent the guy.
Right.
But I'm at a company and I see this young man. He's probably, 25, young guy. And he comes in and it's a big prime he's working for. Mm-hmm. Nameless, but it's a prime. And so he comes in and I'm thinking, yay, a young man who, chose to do this for a living. And I know the kind of prime it is that he's got to have a degree or else they just don't hire these guys, right? Or gals. And I said, so, when did you know you wanted to, he's a source inspector guy, right? He's coming to source us. And I'm like, so when did you know this is what you wanted to do for a living? Did my thing end? Can you still, hello?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Are you there? Okay. Sorry.
I don't know. Some message came up. So I go, when did you know that you wanted to do this for a living? Were you good at math? What sparked it? And he goes, well, I don't know anything about machining and I'm an English major. Oh my God. And I was just like, how in the hell did this guy get this job as a source inspector? You need to have mechanical sense to be a good source inspector, right? And, I was just talking with a customer the other day. They had no idea what a quick turn mill, those mill turn lathes, right? We have these machines. They're 13 axis machines.
Woo!
Yeah, we've got an army of them, right?
I remember when 5-axis was something.
Right? This is 13, right? It's a Swiss machine. Yeah. It's kind of like a Swiss screw machine, like a Star or Citizen or something to familiarize yourself. But it's got an additional turret. It's also got milling. It becomes 13 axis. The bottom line is, if you don't know how that kind of equipment is going to perform for the benefit of your cost, right? And you're the source guy coming out and you see this machine and you're just like, yeah, cool, another cool machine, but you're not really knowing, what it does because you're not mechanically inclined in that way. And not everybody is. No. But I think that they should at least put the accountants on that role, at least if you're gonna hold your feet to the fire on this college degree thing.
I know.
Then for gosh sakes, I think the English majors should go into contracts. All right, contract review, perfect job for them.
Yeah.
And your mathematician guys, your accountants, because there aren't enough jobs out there for these people.
Yeah.
Once they get that degree, but I mean, make them your source guys, I guess.
Well, I mean, like I say, I've got my degree. I'll be honest with you. I have no idea where my diploma is, and I've never given it to anyone. No idea.
Like, do you work for yourself, though? That's why.
I'm sorry?
You working for yourself. Nowadays, they're pushing that. Some of the best machinists that I know actually dropped out of school. And back in my father's days, a lot of times, my father's a great example. My dad was dyslexic. He could not read and write. It was a misunderstood thing back in his days. And he was a hard worker, right? He's from Greenville, Alabama. So he grew up, with a work ethic. And so he's work on jobs, and they'd always promote him to become supervisor guy. The day they'd promote him to supervisor guy, because of how hard he worked and what a good job he's doing, he quit. Because it would require that he had to fill papers out now. So he would quit. And that's what led my father to eventually starting his own business and opening his own shop and becoming very, very successful in doing that. But what my point in saying that is, a lot of guys that are really smart, talented machinists, inspectors, programmers, honestly, are people that don't like college, aren't going to be college people, and that might be why the industry's impacted right now and feeling so challenged. We can't find people. You're not looking in the right place.
Yes. No, exactly. I mean, it's like I learned to code in high school. I'm not saying college was a waste. I'll just say I didn't get much out of it. You connect the dots how you want to connect them. The highest paid welder I've ever known, best damn welder ever met in my life, hardly spoke a lick of English, no high school, no college, but dadgummit, if he did not work in the one air-conditioned spot in the shop and had 4 helpers. He came in, sat down, and he was not going to stand up until it was lunchtime, and he's going to sit there and weld. You grab the next part for him.
Wow. Was it MIG, TIG, spot welder guy? What kind of MIG welding was it?
Probably shouldn't give too many details here.
Okay, never mind.
But
we don't want to say. Well, you're complimenting the guy.
Yeah, but that was the thing. But yeah, he didn't have a lick of formal education. He just worked his tail off and learned everything he could. But it's a different world. But kind of going back a little bit to talking about doing the inspection on site, and this was the same type thing, is he'd inspect all of his own parts.
Really?
Dadgum, if anyone said that he had a crack or a defect in his part, because he checked it all. He'd already done everything. He wouldn't do the fluorescent dye because our mag particle, that's got to be done elsewhere. But
the mag
dadgum, he's checking everything right there. But the cost of poor quality, it's not so, people calculate cost of poor quality a little bit too simply. They take a look, okay, well, what was our material cost and what was our labor cost to rework it? And it's like, well, okay. But now you mentioned earlier about all these supply chain issues that are going on right now. Obviously, the market is bonkers. The value of things from one day to the next is kind of hard to evaluate. It's like, well, while that guy's reworking those components, could he have been doing something else that's actually earning a buck for the company instead of just costing? What's that lost opportunity cost?
Yeah,
I don't ever see that calculated when people do cost of poor quality. What's your lost opportunity cost because he was working on a rework? And I say, well, we don't know how to calculate that. Well, you kind of can. How many hours did he spend working on it? Do you ever have lulls in your production? If you don't ever have lulls in production, then dadgum, if your rework was 10% of your time, you have 10% more revenue minus the cost.
I don't think people actually, I'm a bean counter when it comes to that kind of thing. And I really, be honest with you, I've never seen shops. I don't see shops calculating the true cost of poor quality in the way you just described. Because I think I come from a family business. So I came from a business where, all the costs matter because it impacted my family business. Right.
Yep.
And that's how it works.
I get it.
So when you have that mentality, then you really are looking at how much is this really costing us?
Yeah.
And I know too many shops that are literally not really thinking of it. And you're right. The cost of business, the new customer that you could have supported. But also think about all the outside processing nowadays, especially if you're working in, like I'm in aerospace. We do aerospace components, space components. We do a lot of different things here. We also do medical components. And
it's
some commercial.
Real common parallel these days. Real common.
Oh my gosh, right? Well, what I love about medical is that they're not going to go out of state or out of the country, rather. And that's pretty great. I want more of that going on in the aerospace industry, quite frankly. I don't know how we push ITAR, by the way, and we send parts to Mexico. I don't get that.
Yeah.
I'm lost on that. Maybe you won't approach it, but I don't get that. How are we doing that?
I can't say that I can answer that question, but I can tell you some of the hindrances that get in the way. So right now, we provide at Texas Quality Assurance, we have our quality management software, right? And so we're in the process right now of trying to get that NIST 800 series compliant ITAR, going through the whole process there.
Nice.
But one of the little pieces that gets in the way is some of the licensing that you have to have requires getting your SAM and UAI.
Yep.
It is such a stupidly difficult, actually not difficult, fraught with problems process. It's months just to get the little ID for the next 10 steps in the road.
Hey man, wait till you got to get a classification code for a part you're shipping to Germany or one of our ally countries, right? I waited 6 months for DEX to give me a classification. And by the way, it was a scary part. But all you got to do is figure out engineering wise, what all could it be used for? Here's all the things you could use it for.
Yep.
And if it is like for a laser system, which this was, for a tank, which this was, then everybody puts on the brakes, that's supposed to give you your classification code.
Yep.
But that took me 9 months.
I know.
9 months.
I know.
And I couldn't even play with that customer for 9 months because honestly, they wanted to send me a sample part. And you know what? If it's certain things, you've got to get an import license just to get that sample part.
Yep.
And so it was a big education for me. But, and you know what? I could have just done it. But I'm a geek and I want to follow
do it right
to the letter.
Yep.
But
I had
the
a
system
customer,
that's imposed is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
No. I had a customer a couple of years ago. They did develop some of the radar technology that's used in a lot of semi-autonomous vehicles, which now is almost every new vehicle sold's got some of this type of equipment in it. It annoys the crap out of my car right now. Cruise control is useless. The radar is going to slow me down way before I'd slow down otherwise. Maybe that says a little bit too much about how we drive in Texas, but cruise control is useless to me now. But they made some of this radar technology, and they had the exact same issue. And so what they just decided to do is they just set up a temporary shop overseas for a few months to study the part over there instead of going through the hell to get it over here.
Can you believe that?
That was cheaper and easier to send folks to live overseas for a few months to do all the study, the testing, everything they needed on the component, rather than send it back here to get tested, because they could do that in 3 months versus the exact same thing you're talking about.
And then we're being told that they want us to, by the way, the overseas markets, you can really do a lot of, I hate to put it this way. You might want to edit this out. But I told a friend of mine the other day, there was a time when you could we would send commercial parts to Mexico because it was a cheaper way to do it, right? We were doing these actually motorcycle spokes for Harley, my dad's shop,
Cool.
And eventually, and we were usually on the ouch end of things like that. But we couldn't debate it. But our job that we were making these spokes and nipples for the Harley Indian motorcycle. Very cool. Eventually they ended up, going to China, but they came back because the quality was atrocious and they couldn't get the nipples to match the spokes. And eventually the win was they sent it to Mexico, and that was a cheaper way to go. Right.
Yep.
So I get it. And the other day I found out there are a lot of material grades that are like titanium, as an example, and beryllium in the Netherlands, that they're banning. You can't machine these materials anymore in these areas, which, okay, there it is. But guess what? They still have programs that are going to, use these components and these material grades. So United States has kind of become Europe's Mexico. So that's the part you might want to edit out because we're really cost effective here. And we know what the heck we're doing when it comes to machining. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
America was built on the backbone of this
I know.
kind of industry, right? This
I know.
kind of industry, right?
Well,
Steel,
and this seems to be
metal,
a recurring theme on the podcast these days. Can't say it's by intent, but definitely a recurring theme is how much we really need to get back to the roots of American manufacturing.
right?
I mean, I know it's almost cliche to hear, but I mean, it keeps kind of coming up in our conversations.
Maybe it needs to, because apparently our leadership is not hearing it, or they're forgetting about what their granddaddies started long, long ago. Yeah, I mean, really, our industry, our America is great, not only because of its wonderful people, right? But it's great because of the industries that we established here.
Yep.
One of them is steel.
Yeah.
And one of the pains we're now facing, and I hope we don't face this pain stronger, but is, the lack of steel. We're not we're not doing that here.
No.
And, I mean, I'm not going to be
and it's not just steel.
Political,
you can name darn near anything. We're just not doing it.
It's wrong.
I know.
Put a stop to that.
I've got another.
The compliances we're putting on people, like you just think about our oil thing, right? American oil is actually the cleanest fossil fuel that you can get. It really, really is.
I have heard this.
It is. So why the hell are we doing this stuff with Venezuela and Russia and trying to get our oil elsewhere? I don't get it.
We've made the point on here before about, well, you never really hear about Chinese and Russian oil spills. Is it because they don't do it? No,
it's because they don't talk about it.
Exactly.
For gosh
sake.
Right. It's not they don't share that information with the people, and it's not about oil spills. We have the technology. We know what we're doing here. Certainly we've done trial and error, so we now know what we're doing there for sure. I mean, things happen. I am a believer in nuclear energy.
I agree as well.
Okay. Yep. So I think that's
totally
the way to go. I don't think it's wise to build a nuclear energy plant in a state where they got fault lines all over the place, like, where I'm at. So that doesn't make sense to me. Everybody's hailing my governor because he's recently gone ahead and reopened Diablo power plant, the nuclear facility. Diablo,
that they just shut down.
That name is like bumming me out. I'm like, what is it? Really?
All right. So disclaimer for our listeners, we've got a foreigner on the show today.
I told somebody my state is getting so bad. I'm going to change my LinkedIn profile just to say United States. It's embarrassing. It's tearing families too. My little daughter she's 32. She moved to Knoxville, Tennessee. God bless Knoxville, Tennessee. I love Tennessee. Kentucky too, and Texas.
Yes.
But these are a couple of good ones. Huntsville, Alabama, you guys are doing it right.
Yep.
For sure. And go Florida. Yeah, but when people find out I'm out here, I don't even want to say the name. Look how embarrassed I am. I used to have a lot of pride, like we have the Sunshine State, where we got the surf and the mountains with snow.
Right.
We got it all, and now we got nothing. Yeah. It's terrible. It's pretty bad here.
But no, there's just it gets so I don't know. I guess I get to see both sides of this. So we work with everything from the mostly small business, but everyone from folks who are just struggling, barely getting by, trying to help them put some of these processes in place. Whereas we look at other groups where they are just absolute shining example of what could and should be done. And we're going to be trying to get some of these folks on the podcast as well. But so much of our American economy, and again, I know it's cliche to say, but folks really got to let this sink in, really relies on small business. 100%. I mean, we think about Amazon and all these other big companies, but they provide the jobs they create and the livelihood they create is so minuscule. I probably need to do this. This would be fun to do and, dig into aerospace and steel manufacturing, how much that's really small businesses. But we talked here a while back about the oil and gas world. More than 95% of the folks working in oil and gas extraction work for a business with less than 50 employees.
Wow.
So you think about, everyone likes to talk bad about Exxon and Chevron and all these other companies, but they don't actually do a whole lot. All of the work is done by the average Joe that lives as your neighbor.
Right. Yeah, actually, I do know a little. I'm actually public policy chair for an organization, AIAA. So I'm looking in the political stuff, right?
Right.
And I just got this seat, so now I'm public policy chair. Oh boy,
Yeah, very cool.
So we'll see what that is. But 17% of tax-paying dollars in the state of California are manufacturing sector.
Yeah.
And remember, with that said, we're the state that's practically scaring all the small businesses away with a boogeyman mask going. Think about it.
I know.
We had, Haas was born here, right? So was Fadal, was born here in the state of California. And we're scaring, where'd Haas go? Texas, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where our office is now is about an hour and a half from Austin. So we've got lots of the California refugees headed this way.
You know how much money it is to move a shop like that? A facility and Haas, by the way, those are really good paying jobs. Those machinists that work at Haas, those guys, I'll tell you what, those people were some of the highest paid in the industry because Gene Haas is a good man. And he actually came from, a little shop and inventing something and made it happen. And he gets it from the common man's position. Right. So that means Ventura County, where they were stationed, like over almost 1,500 jobs alone that I know about just on the shop floor, that were high paying. Go ahead and buy a house with how much you make in California. In California,
that's saying something.
In Texas, you all can buy, Californian leaves California. You retire with what you sold your house for there and buy a rental property. What I mean?
It's funny. We just moved out to the country, and so we've got 16 acres, but we're 8 miles down a dirt road, right?
Nice.
But on our little dirt road alone, there's at least 2 other families that have moved here from California.
Oh, gee, I'm sorry.
Because they're just leaving to get out of the mess and buy some land. But no, a lot of what I think has allowed this is, some of these same ideas about quality, I think, translate into the same type of culture around, how you run the local and the state governments and whatnot is depending on the individual to do good work. And that means building an entirely different culture around things, which sounds like is kind of where you've landed, is how do we get the individual to take accountability, true ownership for their work, and take pride in the work they do. When you get someone that's skilled, that can take pride in the work they do, go to work, do a good job, and come home fulfilled, that eliminates so many problems. We spend all this time in spreadsheets and pivot charts and data analysis. There's not a place for it. There's a place.
Yeah. But at some point in time, you got to go walk your floor.
Novel idea.
Know the names of your guys on the floor, right? I've seen business owners that just want to look at that data sheet. Yeah. And by the way, that's not telling you everything that's going on your shop floor. No. How many machinists do you know who've checked a bad part in a bucket?
Yeah.
That part didn't get counted on that chart. Come on now.
Well, I did some work for a company last year, and they were trying to get certified to multiple standards. And I remember talking to the guy that's heading up the process, and he's like, "Colin, what do I need to do to get things turned around?" And I said, "It's simple. Spend 50% of your day out on the floor. That's it. Spend 50% of every day."
But also the standards. I used to be a real naysayer about AS 9100, honestly, because I grew up in this business. I got a 32-year-old, so it tells you something about where I'm at, wise, right? So, growing up in the industry, I mean, think about it. We got a rocket to the moon without AS 9100 on regular old Bridgeport mills and parting plays, making parts. That happened, everybody. So, growing up with a comparator, a set of calipers and micrometers, right? And some Joe blocks, calibrated,
right?
And a granite table. But growing up that way, I saw this whole AS 9100 thing moving into our industry, and I just saw, oh my God, that's so much to impose on the little shop owner, right? The small business, right? Because it's so much money to get that certification. And to me, I started looking at it like, wow, that's pretty crooked. You know, they're
Mhm.
they're trying to really make jobs for people. And we already know how to make good parts and keep our
Right.
shop floors clean. And that's kind of how I saw it, right? Like it's a way to tell me how to clean my room. And eventually, though, I did come to know that it is a good tool. The
Mhm.
AS 9100, the things that you must adhere to,
Mhm.
it really does make sense, and in the long run, it's worth it. You got to find, but you can find different people to charge you different amounts of money to implement it. So that's
No.
where you need to be careful.
Yeah.
You know, and also, you know, you got to be careful about making sure that the person that you pick who's going to implement this certification into your shop is legitimate.
No kidding.
There's some people out there that are scamming people out there on this business. Do you
I
know
could have a whole long, fun conversation on that topic, but
you should do a conversation on that topic.
I see both sides of your argument, and I live in this world. Okay, so we don't work with AS 9100. I'll say yet. It is in the works to get there, but we don't have the properly credentialed folks. So you know, it's a process to get there. But I see both sides of the argument. Is it absolutely can be a racket? Great way to make a ton of money. The fact is, you take a look at the ISO 9001, because I was on the committee and I finally just had to bow out because I couldn't stand some of the stuff going on, and it was hard to keep up with, a whole set of reasons. But these standards are developed by consultants like me for the benefit of consultants like me sometimes. And
okay, yes, oh no, I agree with that. Yeah, no, I hear you there.
But at the same time, you do need some minimum, somewhat universal standard with which folks can get graded against, so that your English majors have something to grade you against.
Yeah, that's it, right? Right, exactly, right. They got a map, you know, a map to follow.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot wrong with it. I will admit that. I do see some flaws in it. I also, you know, how they can have the auditor comes out and he audits you, you know, how you doing with this AS 9100 thing? Are you still doing good? And when I know of shops whose OTD is like at 40% and their quality ratings are at 60 and they're still passing those guys, that's when I know that English major must have been the auditor.
Well, we have a term for that. We call them certificate mills.
That's where the problems are. And then the people who are kicking butt at this game, who really are, you know, you got 50, and now the certification tells you there's 50 to choose from, when truly there's like 5 to choose from out of the 50.
Yep.
You know, who are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And those are some of the caveats that I find are not helping the industry. You know, if it's going to be something that you charge people money for, it better pay off.
Well, you know? You might enjoy checking out the guy from our last week's episode, Chris Paris with Uxbridge Resources. He's kind of the unofficial industry watchdog. So it might be something you'd be interested in checking out. But no, it is. I mean, it's all.
Well, the industry needs a watchdog because I see too many. It's ridiculous. It's not. I don't like, and like I said, I'm a geek a little bit. So
yeah,
I'm not a cop, but I just don't like seeing the rules be broken for some. You know, just because they took the auditor golfing. You know, really, because then what that does is it tarnishes something that should be pristine, especially right in regards to quality and
well, I mean, people rely on these certifications to evaluate their risks, to get bids, and it's a whole other fun rabbit trail to go down. But let's kind of finish with this. So where you're at now, and first, I just love your idea about truly, you know, interviewing the shops you're going to make certain that it's someone that you want to put your reputation and your job, you know, to be associated with. But what do you see that these folks did to really build that culture to where their team would accept having to go through so much additional training, so much cost on equipment, but to be able to see the result? Like, what is it that's different about these guys that so many other folks maybe have a hard time wrapping their heads around, or folks that are listening going, Kyle, that's stupid expensive. Just get the guy to check it at the end. Quit talking about all this mess. Like, what's different about their mindset in a good way?
Well, Yeah, anybody sitting there thinking, get the guy to check it at the end. That's stupid, guys. I think that way. Trust and believe. And that is, but I mean, if you're just running out, easy, inserts or something, with
a little
an
different
thread, and like a 16 finish all day long, you don't
right.
check it at the end, everybody. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But if you're running complex components, such as, the sort of niche market that I always find myself in, then if it's a higher dollar value on those kind of things, right? So if you want to play the game, let's play,
cool.
in the high dollar market. So with that said, you got to have the only way to do it. Now, how did they come about? Why did the machinists receive that information? Why were they willing to learn how to do this thing, etc.? It's really all back to relationships and people. They have a guy here who is the president of the company, who's not the owner's son or, son-in-law or anything like that. The guy who works here actually started out 20 years ago in D. Burr. He's now the president of this huge company that sits on 4 acres with 4 separate buildings, from fabrication department, fully loaded with anything. I tell everybody this is like the Willy Wonka's chocolate factory for machines. You've got like any machine your brain could ever need or want.
Yeah.
We have a department that has that,
Cool.
So the guy started out in D. Burr, and he just busted his tail, showed up every day, was there did the right thing, right? And
young people, listen. You're in college.
He wasn't the college guy. He just, like I'm saying, man, think about it. Started out in D. Burr. That's like, although I will say D. Burr is becoming a department when you work in complex components. The D. Burr guy is not just the guy picking parts out of the tumbler. The D. Burr guy is an artist.
Yeah.
He's an artist, just like honing. There's kind of, you got to have a feel to honing. It's an artist, touch. And then
he didn't start out high up on that ladder.
But I'm talking tumbler D. Burr.
Yeah.
This guy started out in the tumbler D. Burr.
So he's on the bottom rung there.
Big time.
Yeah.
And he literally worked his way up from that to machining, to the inspection department, to just worked his way up, and had a great attitude along the way.
Yep.
And so here's how it paid off for the company. So the guy who was the manufacturing manager guy, I don't know who he was, I never met him, but whoever it was, he retired, right? And so the owner was asking around his departments and saying, God, what do I do? I got to find somebody. And the VP says, you already have somebody. And mind you, he's the vice president. And he goes, Juan Carlos, that's your guy. He knows everything that's going on this shop floor. And long story short, they promote the guy to president, right?
Fantastic.
I went on a shop facilities tour with this man not too long ago, right? And I love giving the facilities tour because I'm who can talk machines. So of course, I feel like the little red rooster out there, like, I know machining, and here we go. Right. So this guy, we go on the shop floor, and I'm learning the shop here. My first tour, bringing a new customer. We go on the shop floor, and man, I'll tell you what, this guy, it's the most impressive shop tour I've ever been on. And he's walking us through that shop floor, and it was like he was still the machinist. Every cell that he stopped in, he knew everything that was going on with those parts, right? And it's a big company. We have 120,000 square feet of building that we have an army of machines in, right? So just think about that many departments and that much equipment and that much space and 4 different buildings on 4 acres. Think about that, right?
Yeah.
And this guy's walking through, and it wasn't like staged, because
the genuine enthusiasm and interest.
Well, the buyer actually stopped, and I'm thinking, oh crap, if this is staged, this is going to suck. A talker, And so we stopped by a machine, and the buyer's like, hey, can you tell me about these parts? Because randomly, They look a lot like a part that we're working on right now. Oh yeah, here we go, boom, and he goes right into it. He can talk complexity on these parts. They were detailed, unbelievable. So, anyways, long story short, when you have somebody like that who is the leader of people who are starting from here, and they see what hard work and dedication have done for you, they know the same thing can happen for them.
Yeah.
And they will put in the effort, and they do. And that is what's happening. And I'm seeing that. And our tenor here is like people that have been here for 20 years and, and our 35-year-olds started here when they were 19.
That's so awesome.
20. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
And the company's coming alongside them and getting them education. Right there, the company is coming alongside these individuals who want it, and bringing them up higher in their skill sets by teaching them CMM or sending them to GED school or sending them to engineering courses where they get to learn certain things. And the company's coming alongside the people, and in return, it's a beautiful handshake, right? Because then the people are coming alongside the company. It's something I haven't seen in a really long time. Well, that marriage.
That is probably a great spot to stop here.
Okay.
But no, I mean, it is, again, none of this should be new or surprising to anyone. But unfortunately, these type stories don't get told enough these days. We all want that shortcut, that secret to success. How do we get there overnight? How do we do it in 5 years and 1 year? And while those things do happen, for the majority of us, it's just a long trudge, do the right thing step by step and get there. And it's just a story that needs to be told a lot more often. It is what our nation is built on, and it's the age-old model for success. So I really appreciate you coming on here to chat today. We definitely need to get you back on here in the future.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
Great being here. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, that has it, folks. This is just kind of a really fun episode. Usually we've got a certain target or direction we want to go, but I just like sharing sometimes good stories about good people doing good work. And I think this is just a great, great example of that. So if you like what we're doing here at the Quality Matters podcast, you want to support us, make certain you like, subscribe, share this with as many folks as you can who value quality, American jobs, manufacturing, and our way of life. Definitely thank you for listening. We will be announcing pretty regularly soon. We're putting together what we're calling the Energy Continuity Conference. A lot more details coming about that next week, but this is a first of its kind conference where we're going to be looking at business continuity, contingency plans, risk identification specifically for the energy industry. So stay tuned for